Okay, I hope my screen is visible.
Yeah,
Okay.
Um,
Yes.
also, I have one doubt, like from
Okay.
yesterday's session.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Yesterday we have mentioned P as a alias for panda. So is that a fixed one, or else we can give any name on the alias instead of P
Like
PD?
here while
Yeah,
importing.
yeah, correct.
Yeah, you can give any of the name. Yes, you can give any name as per your choice, any letter as per your choice. It's just I am using PD because uh, it is like the standard practice that we use PD for pandas, GPD for geopandas, like that. So,
Okay, okay.
but
I'll
it's not like that you are bound to use PD.
Okay. As well as the path, no, we can give the any variable
Yes,
instead of path. Okay, so we can
correct.
give
Yeah.
path one or two if we have multiple path to give as an input. Correct.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Even instead of path, you can write India as well. So whatever name of the variable that you want, you can anyways write it.
Okay. So here
Okay.
the path as well the India both are the consider
No,
we consider
no.
as
But
the
in that case, you need to have separate names, like
oh,
separate variable names. Yeah.
oh,
So today in today's session itself, we'll be starting with the basics like the variable and data type. So you'll get more understanding about how to assign the values and all those things.
okay.
Okay.
Got it.
So, in yesterday's session, we have tried to know little more information about the
हाँ
platform.
रिटर्न का नहीं मिला यार, देखता हूँ अभी। वर्क फ्रॉम होम के लिए पूछा था मैनेजर से। क्या बोला?
Can you please mute
बोल।
your mic, Yogesh? Yeah,
सॉरी सॉरी।
thanks. No, it's fine. Okay, so in yesterday's session, we tried to look into the overview about what all things are there that we're gonna do about how GIS will look like and how Python is exactly running and all those things. So there were we tried to understood about we were we printed few things about what is the platform that we are using here, I guess. Okay, fine. I'll let you know again. So what are different, so what is the system configuration? What is the operating system where you are actually operating? What are the platform and to know more about the system information because
And
that is the basics
I'm
about
sorry.
the Python. For
I'm
example,
sorry to
let's suppose you are working in
hello.
Colab. So though the system and not all the configurations are coming from the Google Colab itself, but let's suppose you
Okay.
are working on your own
Also,
system on
one
the
minute.
Jupyter
Sorry
Lab.
to interrupt.
Yeah.
Yeah, the system information which we have printed yesterday, right? So that
Yeah.
is not our local
No.
machine, right? So it is
Yeah, that
the
is not
Google
a
one.
local machine. Yeah. I'm
Mm.
telling that only again because we only discussed in the brief. So, for example, let's suppose right now we are on the Google Colab platform. So it will give you the architecture and the system information about the Google Colab configuration. But
Okay,
the same commands will give you the information about your own system where you will be running in case you are running on the Jupyter Lab or Jupyter Notebook or Anaconda or Visual Studio. So when you will
okay,
be running on those platforms, it will give you the system information about your own local system rather than giving you something else.
mm,
Uh,
yeah,
also, yeah. So I will also do it again. So let's suppose you want to know the platform information. So first of all, we did some kinds of import. Why exactly we did import? So there are multiple names that will come across in the further session, name called as modules, imports, function called and print. So yesterday also we discussed about import and print and function calls. So whenever you are calling a function, means there is some kind of a function which is inbuilt within the Python and we are calling that function to fetch some information that is already built there. Means whenever we'll say that we are calling a function, we are running a built-in function and to fetch some kind of a detail. Similarly, print we will be using to print the output to the screen to display some of the information, any information, some variable information or anything. Whenever we'll be using the import, that means we are bringing the module into the code to use its functionalities, to use its functions further. What is modules? So modules are like when you are installing those libraries. So pre-written Python libraries can also be called as the module, means to access other system information or the libraries information to. But if you have to use that the function of those library, you need to import those modules into your code, and then you are liable to use those particular function. What kind of a different platforms can be there? So let's say a platform means OS level details. Is it a Windows system? Is it a Linux? What is the version? What is the architecture? Those kind of information. Though for our case right now for learning and all, these things don't matter as such, like which system you are using. But whenever you are building a script for a production grade project in your organization, at that time, all these things will also matter, because they all comes as a part of the system design. When you are designing your project architecture, at that time all these things matters, because what operating system you are using, which version you are using, which architecture you are using, will define that how much scale you can give to your particular project. Similarly, system means it will interact with Python runtime. So it is also a Python module which will help you give the Python version and system level configuration about the Python. OS library, it will help you work with files and directories, and also help you work with current working directory. So yes, like in the previous sessions when I used to open the command prompt, from there when I switch the current directory, I used cd and then slash and then give the path wherever I want to switch. But in Google Colab, there you have to use OS in order to switch the working directory, and let's suppose with the code itself. Earlier, right now, I told you that you have to upload your data somewhere on your drive in some folder, and we'll fetch it from there. But when we'll do more automation and more customization, let's suppose you are building some script, a larger workflow. In the intermediary steps, you have to save those files as well in some folder. So will you create those folders manually? No. At that time, we will be using the OS library to create those intermediary files. Intermediary folders means help you work with the working directory in between whenever you are running your code as well, or whenever you are working with your script. So simple. Let's before knowing how to know all these things, you have to import all these things. Let's suppose platform, system, and OS if you want to work with it. And then print statement is used to print anything for that matter. Let's suppose I want to write system information first. I want to know system information. So I just wrote it like that. It is also used for better visualization and to structure your outputs and all those things. Then you want to print the operating system information. So, but you want to have some label as well. So you will write operating system. So you can see that I am writing this operating system inside the quotes. So whatever you are writing inside the quotes is a static word, or I will say text that you are writing. It doesn't fetch any value from anywhere. But whatever you are writing after with the brackets, like after the brackets, when you will write something, so it will give you and fetch you the value of that. So in the operating system, I want to know the operating system information. So from where I can get this? I can get this from platform. This platform is this library, and platform dot system. Yeah. So platform dot system will give me the system's information. Similarly, let's suppose I want to print the operating system version, which version we are using for the operating system. For that as well, oh, I forgot a comma. There should be a comma. So whatever you will write after a comma, it will get printed. For operating system, it will come from the platform library. So platform dot version, and then So it is imported and then, okay, yeah. So platform.system is Linux. Why it is coming as Linux, though I'm still using a Windows system, because it is giving me the operating system where this Google Colab is running. If you will run this on your own system in your Jupyter Lab or notebook, then it will give you a different uh, operating system in your Visual Studio Code. So platform.version, so it is giving me the operating system version of basically of my system. It is giving me that. And next was the Python version. Let's suppose if you want to print. So Python version will come from the system library that we imported, this system dot version. So it gave me 3.12.13, the Python version that we are using. If you open this on your own system, it will give you the Python that you have downloaded or you have installed on your. For checking the working directory, like in which directory you are working right now. So I want a working directory. So it will come from the OS library. So os dot get cd. So it is now the working directory is /content. So earlier yesterday I told you, so this is the directory. Till now we haven't mounted the drive yet. So we are on the content stage, and this content is coming from the Google Colab, like the temporary directory that it is having. But as I mentioned, that we should always mount the drive and work after that only, so that you're not losing out with any of the content. Because as soon as I will just refresh this page or I'll close this session, and the moment I'll open it again, it will lose any of the data that you must have loaded or worked with, or you have saved it in your content directory, because it is obviously a temporary directory that this Google Colab session is having. So that is a difference between why it is necessary and important to always mount the drive before starting your work. Okay. So once your drive is mounted, then you're anyways good to go with whatever data that you want to load or upload or save it in your browser. Now we'll start with the very first topic of Python, which is a variable and data type. Why the variable and data type understanding is really important before jumping into the main workflows, because everything in Python revolves around these two things. So either you are either storing a single value, or you're storing a whole table, or you're storing a whole shapefile, GeoJSON data. It will all be stored in a variable. And as we all know that, let's suppose take example of a GIS data itself. In GIS, all the data revolves around, let's suppose it will have a coordinate column, it will have some name column and a population column. So all three columns cannot have same data type, because name will be stored as a text, your coordinates will be stored as some float value because they will be in decimals, and population will be stored as a integer. So there comes the importance of variable, and every single variable that you will be storing will have some kind of a data type attached to it, no matter what. But how will you do you assign a data type explicitly? So no, you never assign the data type explicitly to any of the variable. So that is why it is mentioned a variable is a name bound to a Python object. So why we are saying Python object? Because a variable looks like that we're storing a value only, but it comprise of two things: a value itself which you are assigning, and a type comes along with it, which you don't need to define. It will automatically detect on the basis of how you are defining those variables. So variable is just a name that will store your value. Whatever value you will assign to that particular variable, it will auto detect the type. And though when I'm saying that it will auto detect the type, that is the reason there is a technical term called dynamic typing. So dynamic typing means the object has a type and name can point to any of the type. Means whatever value you will assign to any variable, it will automatically fetch its type. And though there are two things that comes to a variable, a value and a type, that's why we call it as a Python object. Object and variable are not same. So whenever somebody asks you that are variable and object same, so no, it is not same. But when you assign a variable, some value to a variable, that becomes object. So just be clear with that statement. Then, for example, in any of the GIS workflow, let's suppose a country name, a population. So as I mentioned, country name can only be in text, population can only be a number, and similarly lat long are in coordinates. So it will be in the float or in any decimal. So you cannot write the coordinate value in integer data type format in that. Then how do you inspect the type of any of the variable if you want to check explicitly that, okay, I don't understand that what is the type of this particular column in my data or any of the variable that you have assigned. For that, there is a function called type. Within the bracket, you will pass the variable. It will simply give you the type of that particular variable that you have stored. Then there are certain rules that we will discuss when we'll do the demo. The basic rule is to always have snake casing whenever you are giving any name to your variable. Means, let's suppose if you look into this, so it's just a journal practice that you don't start your variable with a capital letter. And snake casing means let's suppose if you have any two words and then you want to join and name it, give that as a variable name. So let's suppose name population. So we'll write name underscore population, and the second letter that you are giving in the variable name, the first letter of that second word should be capital. So these are just the basic rule. And you can say that if I use a normal word by myself, that can I make the N as capital? You can make the N as capital, but it may throw error, and it cannot, it maybe doesn't throw any kind of error also to you. But it is a general practice that you always use snake casing for giving the variable names, letters with underscore there. But which is the compulsory thing is there should be no spacing in your variable names throughout. There should be no random spaces or any kind of a @ hashtag or these kinds of symbols you cannot use in a variable. It should be a proper text with just the underscore in between. No other random kind of a text like exclamatory or something like that in your variable assigning. So we'll understand all these things by assigning and creating the variable itself. So first of all, if you have to create any of the variables, so for creating any variable, simple, write the name of the variable, whatever suits you, whatever you think that it is better defining my data. I always prefer giving the variable name which is relevant to what I'm loading. If I'm loading country data, so I'll write it as country. If I'm loading some city data, so I'll give the variable name as that city underscore district. So that when you're working with your script, anybody who is seeing your script, they can like make sense out of it that, okay, fine, okay, what kind of a data must be stored in this variable. So when I'm storing country is equals to India. So when I'm storing it like this, country is equals to India, and let's suppose population is equals to 34, and something like latitude is equals to 34.67. This is a normal assignment of the variable. Then name is equals to India. So in this, I have created or assigned the variable name here. And if you want to print or know that what is the value of this particular variable, so you can just directly write, I'll only write it for country. So can you see why this error is coming here? So this particular error is coming because you cannot define any kind of a text without this uh, double quotes here. So you cannot define any text with a double quotes like this. If you have to define, it should be either a number or something like that, like this. But you can convert a number into a string, but you cannot convert a string into a number like this. So that is why it is throwing me error that India is not defined, because it is now treating that India as a variable name and it is not treating it as that you are defining some variable. So name, I'll just change something here. So even if I write India, so now what it is trying to fetch, the Python is thinking that India is some kind of a variable, and that variable's value you are assigning to the country, because this is not the ideal way how to assign a text thing into some kind of a variable. If you want to assign some text to a variable, you should always write it inside the quotes. Whenever you write anything inside the quotes, it will automatically convert that particular variable into a string data type. Now, if I print it, it will give me the output like this. Now we'll inspect the data type for all of them, because currently, though by seeing this, once you will know, you will always understand that what is the data type. But for the very first time, if you want to understand what is the type of these variables, so you just need to write type and those variable names, and simply, so the variable of the type country is a string. What do you think the variable, the type of the name will be? Any idea?
String only.
Yeah. So it will be string only because it is inside the quotes. Pop will be integer and latitude will be float. We'll check for everything. So the type for the pop is integer and for the latitude is simply it will be float because it is in decimal. So that is how we can assign any of the variable with any name that we want to have, and we can check the type of that particular variable as well. The dynamic typing was the same, means that we don't need to explicitly define that what should be the type of the variable. Is just that you need to write those variables in the correct format and the Python will automatically detect its type. So that is what meant by dynamic typing in this. Next thing is to let's suppose if you want to swap the variables, and can you assign similar variable name to different data type? Let's suppose I wrote x is equals to 10 and I wrote x is equals to India. And I printed. So it is giving me both the variable name, and if I check the type as well, it will show me integer and string as well. But you should never do this, that giving the similar variable in a single script. In a single script, when you're making some workflow, you should always have unique variable names. It will not throw you error. It will have the variables, it will create its own type, and even if you fetch it somewhere, it will give you the output. But this can cause issues somewhere, because let's say you are calling X for 10 value, but it will give you for India sometimes. So this will not throw error on the first go, but it is not recommended that you should have a similar variable name. Variable should always be unique in this. For the snake casing that I was mentioning, the naming rules, first of all, it should always start with a letter.
Now we have
Yes.
which one is X actually now, whether it is a 10
Yeah.
or
So
string.
both are X. Both is this X where you have assigned the variable 10, it is a string. So type A, I printed that's why also type A, uh, type X, this is integer. For type B, here I have assigned the given the variable value as India with a string. So this is a string. So it is printing both the things. It is giving you also. But when we will be doing complete workflows, it is not an ideal practice that you should use same variable name for different data types and for different things. Variable name
Okay.
will always be unique until and unless you are like reassigning some value to that same variable. Let's suppose you have a area column, and in that area column, that is a float data type, and
Okay.
you already calculated the area of the city district boundaries. But then after that you merged those boundaries, or you changed some geometry for those boundaries, or some for those geometries, and then after that the area will be changed obviously after the recalculation. So in that case, when the variable value got changed, so that is called as reassigning the variable. So that is allowed, means that you are reassigning onto the same variable name, but you are not making a two copy of that same variable and using
Mm.
it for different tasks with different data types. Here you are treating it as two different entities only. So this is not recommended at all.
Okay. What is this
Yeah.
type? Type
Type is
A.
basically, type will give you the data type.
Okay.
Type is the function which is coming from the Python. It helps you get the type of the variable which you will pass inside that. So type in the brackets, you will pass the variable name, whatever variable you have created and the value that you have stored, and it will simply fetch you the data type. So here, if you see that we fetch the data type at this location, we created the variable. For every
Mm.
variable, if you pass it inside this type, for lat, it
Mm.
give you float. If I write pop here, it will give me integer. So
Okay.
this will come handy when you will get some new data, uh, real world data, and you don't have any understanding about, because sometimes maybe we have an understanding the correct data will always have name as a string and the population as the integer data type. But sometimes people, while creating the data set, they mess up with the data, and maybe they are storing the integer value, but that data type of that column is still the string. So in that case, you cannot do some kind of addition, subtraction, minima, statistical calculation on that column, which is a string column. So you need to convert that column. So in those cases, when we'll get the data for the first time, we'll do the EDA. EDA means exploratory data analysis. We'll understand what are the types of all the columns that we have. Is it correct, not correct? Do I need to change those columns? So we can also change the data type of the column. We'll see that going forward, that how to change the data type of the columns that you have, and you want it to be in some specific data type and want to change it according to your use cases.
Okay.
Yeah. So the next one was the naming rules that I was mentioning. So there are basic rules that it should always start with a letter and always start with a small letter and or underscore. There should be no spaces between the two words in case you are using. You should not start any of the variable with letters, hashtag, at the rate, colon, such kind of thing you should never use in your variable name. And then obviously it should be meaningful at the end. So let's suppose you are assigning any country. So either you just write country or you write underscore name like this. And the much better is this. The second letter should always be capital in this. And similarly, like let's suppose you are assigning some variable, you are calculating the average rainfall. So you should write it like this, average rainfall, basic. And what you should not do is, let's suppose, pop at the rate 2024. This is not the way you should assign any of the variable. Not like this also. Let's suppose you use two words, but there are spacing. So it will be a problem in the column name. So it should always be underscore. There should be no spacing, not the leading and trailing spaces and not the in-between spaces. No spaces are recommended in your column names or in your variable assigning. Why I'm mentioning column names? Because ultimately we are doing understanding all these things, variable and assigning and everything, because ultimately we are gonna have a GIS data, and GIS data will always have an attribute table, and an attribute table will always have column names. So ultimately we need to have unique column names so that you can fetch the attribute information of any GIS data and do your own analysis. So like in GIS as well, in any of the softwares that if you use for GIS, it is always recommended there should be no spacing in the columns. So that is the reason that there should be no spacing between the column names or the variables that we will be creating or assigning the values to. The thing about the assignment, I was mentioning that let's suppose there is some value stored in some of the column in the variable of that column. So let's suppose that name is population and this is mentioned and this is stored. But while after doing some calculation, let's suppose you had the data of a census data, district wise you had some data, and then you want to do a calculation of state wise. So when you had the district wise data, what do you have to do? You have to club that data, make a group of all the districts, and then do the addition of the population column for that district. And then finally, let's suppose in any of the state, if there are 10 districts, so you have to do the addition of 10 district population and merge it into one new value. So let's suppose you have population value. In that case, you will be doing the reassignment, means you will be merging and doing the addition of those population, giving a new value at the same place. So that is allowed, because you are reassigning some new value because of some logical calculation that is required for your analysis. Let's suppose you created this variable called pop, you have some value and then you printed pop. Here also we created this population value 34. So we printed as well. So this is the example of reassignment, that even if you don't in this basically this is again here also, if you just change it to any new value at this place and simply print it again, and then it will be a new value. So this is allowed at this particular location. So this is called as basically reassignment of the variables with some kind of a new value. Later on, we will also see that you can reassign by doing some calculation. In this, you can do the addition and subtraction and then get the new values as well. Not just by giving some value, by doing some mathematical operation, we can get a new value and stored it in the same variable. Then there is a again multiple assignment in the same variable as well we can do. Multiple assignment means here you can see that I am only assigning one variable at a time and with one value. But you can assign multiple variable at the same time. Let's suppose here by just doing the comma, you have written two variable name. So it will take in the same order and it will store the values. Just like this means multiple assignment. If you want to print it, either you print it separately, that is also possible. Or you print it together. No issues. Okay. So you can see that separately as well. It fetched the value of individual variable as well. And if you're printing it by just adding the comma, then also it is giving you the value after the multiple. This is called as multiple assignment. Means you can assign multiple values at the same time, but you need to have different variable names as well alongside it, like this. Any questions till this point?
No. And what is the disk size which is showing in the left column here?
This one?
No, actually here, the left side of the console, where the files and drive sample data. Yeah,
Oh, this is the my drive
your drive.
storageization.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. So, yeah, multiple assignment was done. Now the swapping of the variables. Swapping of the variables means, let's suppose we have something called x is equals to 1 and y is equals to 2. Okay. So let's suppose you have assigned some variable x as 1, y as 2, and you have printed that. Then, and if you want to, you can swap it without having any third, creating any kind of a third variable to this. Simply like this, x is equals to y, x comma y. So means this variable, comma y comma x. Means what you are doing? You are doing that now I want x should be equals to y and y should be equals to x at this point. So, and if you now, if you print xy, it will be now 2 comma 1 because you have swapped the values at this stage.
Why in the before?
Yeah.
The before. After the print, there is other.
Yeah. You can write it whatever name you want to write here at this stage.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so that was about the how to assign the variable and what are the basic tips and tricks that you need to know whenever you are assigning any kind of a variable. And these are the basic things that is available like multiple assignment, swapping, and all those things. Now we'll deep down into the exact data type what are the different nuances of those data types. So we'll start with the basics of integer and the float numbers only, because you anyways have to deal lot of time with the integer and floats only for doing some calculations. So integer simply means any kind of a number which is in the whole number will come in the integer. Float, the moment decimal come into the picture, it will convert it into the float. So that is the basic difference between the integer and whole. So, and there are multiple operators that are provided so that you can do the addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division between different variables. So, but can you do division and addition and subtraction, all those mathematical operation in the string? No, you cannot do. Only in integer and float you are allowed to use these operators, which is true division, float division. I'll explain all these examples one by one. What do you get out of all these? So, but all these mathematical operators are only allowed in the integer and float, not in any other kind of a data type that we will see. So other data types are like tuples, dictionaries, and string. So we'll see all those things one by one. Then convert type, how can you convert? The thing that I was mentioning, that if you think that that variable data type is not the one that you want and it is not in the correct format, so you can convert those variables into your required data type just by using, if you want to convert it into the integer, what you will use, you will just use int within the bracket, you will pass that variable and it will just convert. If you just see, this is called as typecasting. So when somebody is mentioning what is typecasting, so typecasting is simply meaning that you're converting that data, that variable into the uh, required data type. So if you want to convert some value into a respective data type, if this was 3.9, 3.9 is usually by default Python understand that it is a float, so it will be float only. But no, you don't want it to be treated as a float variable. You want for some reason as integer, so you wrote integer. Either pass the variable or you can directly pass your value, whatever you wish to, and then it will just change. Float, if you want to change it to float, write float. Similarly, like this. You can do the typecasting, means you can convert the data type of your variables. Last thing is formatting the output. So formatting the output is a basic concept within the Python, because whenever you are printing something, you need to represent your output in the required format, which is pleasing and which is showing more information. For example, I can print XY directly as well. Like you just got confused. I just printed it this with the same value called before. You got confused that okay, fine, they're the same thing. So that means that is why formatting is important. So this is what formatting means. So this is a very simple way to give the print statement, that you write something inside those quotes that will come as a string, and whatever you write after the comma, it will fetch the value of those variable and it will print you. But there are multiple other ways as well how you print those output in a better formatted way. So for that, there is a key which is called as formatted string, this F you see here. So you have to write everything that you want to print inside this formatted string called F, and then within the bracket quotes you are writing whatever you want to fetch within the quotes and using the curly braces. So that is why it is called as a formatted string. Formatted because of F and double quotes is there, so that means string. Because obviously if you want to have anything as a string, you will use double quotes anyways. We'll see the example of numbers as well. By the way, I am also using Markdown. So let's suppose you are also practicing by yourself. You can use similarly Markdowns and everything. So Google Colab gives you this flexibility as well, that you have option that code and text. The moment you add the text, you'll get the option to write whatever text you want. So if you are learning for the first time and you are practicing, you can add your comments and some information while you are creating your own script so that you remember later. So here also we'll create a variable called population. Let's use a smaller number so that you get the answer. Okay. So this is the variable we created, and then let's suppose in one of the column you have area in square kilometers. So square kilometer area, maybe you have something called 34 square kilometer, and then you want to do the density calculation. So in your attribute column, imagine an attribute column where you have population and area in the one column, and you want to do some density calculation. So obviously you will create a new column altogether. That column name similarly means a new variable we are creating. We are in the smaller version right now. So the density, what formula we'll use for density calculation? Simply population divided by area. So for division, we can directly either use the variable name. So if you're talking in the GIS context, we'll be using the column names, we'll fetch the values using the index and all those things. We'll never be using direct values. So that's why we have assigned the variable here, and we are using the variable name directly for doing our calculation. So population, and what is the operator for the division? So operator for the division is area, this dash, single dash is the operator for your division. And then you want to print that density. So one way is that you directly print it like this without any kind of a formatting. Is it a correct representation of showing the density? I don't think so, because we need to have correct decimal spaces at the end. We need to round off it properly and show that what is this density, what is the unit of this density. All these things we need to display for the correct visualization at the end of it. So for that reason, we will be using the formatted string now.
அது வாஷ் பண்ணியா?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Somebody speaking something?
No, sorry, you can continue.
Okay. 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 So, okay. So in this, when we just directly pass the variable where we have calculated the density, it just printed it like this without any kind of a round off or proper representation. At this stage, we just gave some string and then comma and then density value directly here. But at this stage, here, whatever you will write inside this F string, so there are many ways how you can format your strings inside that. We'll keep on doing once we'll do the hands-on more. But this is a very basic thing that you will write F, the quotes, and then whatever string that you may want to write, and whatever variable value that you want to pass on to this will go inside the curly braces. So here it fetch the variable value if you are writing it after the comma. In the formatted string, you write it inside the string quotes only, but you have to write it inside the these curly braces, so that you can now, so that Python understand. So at this stage, I have to fetch the value. What this colon dot 2f is actually doing means you are doing the round off. So if you want to do the 6 round off, so it will be like this. So that is how you can change the number and do the representation as per your requirement at this particular stage. So that is what is there for the integer and float. The operators that I was mentioning, so we'll do exercise with operator as well. We'll do the direct print of the output. So let's suppose there is one value that you have 7 and one value you have 2. So this is a simple division. Then with the same value, we'll be using everything. Okay, so this was division, this was floor division, and then let's suppose reminder if you want to get. So this was a symbol for the reminder, and then okay. So the first one operator is a simple division, no extra thing. So it gave you the output in the decimal because it was division. Second operator name as floor division. What floor division is basically doing, it will remove the decimal parts and it will only return you the integer part. So that is what it is doing. Without doing any kind of a round off, it will give you the first integer value here. If I use 9 by 2, and that time also it will give me 4 here. So means it will give you only the first integer part, that is before the decimal, without doing any kind of a round off calculation. What percentage will give? It's called as modulus or percentage, whatever you are comfortable with, and it will basically gives you the reminder itself. Then this double star, this is not the multiplication, this is the power, means 7 power 7. So that is basically 7 raised power 2. It will give you 7 into 7, 49. So that is what all these different operators that you can work with. Can you work with all these operators with the string variable? No, you cannot use all these things for the string variable at this stage. Similarly, you can also do the addition as well. And then similarly, the subtraction. And what else is left? Multiplication as well with a single star. I don't think anything else is left. All these are the only operators that are allowed and that are there in the Python that you need to use for basic mathematical calculation. Okay, any questions at this point? We'll start with strings tomorrow because it will take time to complete.
Yeah,
No,
I'm
I
fine.
don't have anything.
Yes.
No, I don't have anything.
We are
Okay.
fine.
Okay, fine. Also, just one request that anyways, we'll cover 3-4 sessions more. After that, I want you to take a look with sessions, videos, and everything. And if you have any feedbacks, any suggestions that we should change some style of delivery or anything, then you can recommend or suggest. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
Okay, then. Thank you. Bye-bye.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Vish.